Hi, I'm Andy with EcoCha, and here we are with batch number 25 of the EcoCha Tea Club. And this month we have a batch of High Mountain Shui Oolong tea from the Lugu Township area at an elevation of about 1,100 meters. I've given the name High Mountain Shui Oolong to this batch of tea simply because I find it the closest description that I can think of to the style that this tea was processed in. It is Shui Oolong in the sense that it is heavily oxidized and unroasted. Oxidized to the point that the appearance of the brewed tea and even the flavor of the tea and the aroma are very similar to black tea. But there is still enough of a complexity and freshness of flavor and also enough greenness in the leaves to obviously make it an oolong in the sense that it is still partially oxidized. And the actual character of the tea, the flavor profile, has enough oolongness in it to distinguish it from a black tea. So in that sense, as a heavily oxidized tea that is left unroasted, I consider it a Shui Oolong. And as you will see, the actual color of the brewed tea is quite red. I should mention that Shui in Chinese translates as red water. And it is a local specialty traditional tea made in the Lugu area along with Dongding Oolong Tea, which is much more famous and commonly available now. The main difference between Dongding and Shui is that Dongding Oolong is roasted after it is processed to about a medium level. So it's obviously a roasted tea. So our friend rented his factory out to a farmer that he knows well and has bought his produce from before. But this time, the farmer was selling his raw produce to a young tea maker, a guy in his 20s, who inherited his tea making knowledge and skills from his grandfather and is the only surviving heir of this family tradition and has dedicated himself to preserving their family tradition of tea making. And our friend watched this tea being made and got more and more curious because it became more and more obvious that this wasn't your normal day in tea making. The length of time in the oxidation stages was extended quite a bit, and in combination with the shuffling of the tea leaves, which is what goes together with the simple wilting process, both outdoor and indoor. So he noticed that something interesting was going on. He watched the process a little more closely. He tried to chat up the young guy that was making it, who evidently was a rather taciturn fellow. Didn't say much, was polite, but just said, "This is what I'm doing, and this batch is made to order. I'm making a batch of tea. The person who is purchasing it is purchasing the batch in its entirety." Now, so that would sound like the tea was not available at all, but there's always little ways involved when you're directly involved in the operations, such as our friend who owns the factory. He knew that his friend who provided the raw produce, the tea leaves, would have a choice at least to get a certain amount of the tea when it was totally finished. And so he asked his farmer friend if he could have a small amount of it, and his farmer friend acquiesced. And long story short, or shorter, our friend offered us half the amount of tea that he was able to procure. And he not only was willing to share it with us, but he knew that I'm always searching for interesting batches of tea to share with our tea club. And when he came into this batch, or when he came upon this batch, he called me up and said, I think I have a batch of tea that you might be interested in. And sure enough, here we are sharing it with our Eco-Cha Tea Club members. So, heavily oxidized, but still quite a bit of green in the leaves. When our Tea Club members receive their batches, I encourage you to notice the leaves after they're brewed and notice the level of oxidation. It's quite significant around the edges of the leaf and along the center stem, but you'll see in the body of the leaf that there's still quite a bit of green there. And if this were a black tea, the leaves would have been more aggressively rolled so that the constituents in the tea, the juices per se, the sap in the leaves, would be distributed fully, and there would be an even oxidation, and it would be completely reddish brown as black tea leaves are. That's the story of this tea, and now we get to the flavor of it. I find it really intriguing. It has all the sweetness of a black tea, that kind of warm smoothness. There's very little astringency, no bitterness at all. It's just, it reminds me of fruit compote. There's a lot of fruity character in it. I first drank this tea for the first several brews. I couldn't stop thinking of pomegranate. Even though it doesn't really taste like pomegranate, but there's something in the aftertaste, in the aromatic, in the nose of the tea after you drink it, that has a little bit of citrus, but something more like hibiscus, pomegranate. That kind of profile, balance of sweetness and tanginess is really interesting. I find it a tea that I won't tire of easily. And as the weather gets colder, we're offering this tea in our December batch of tea for the Eco-Cha Tea Club. I think it's quite fitting. I think it fits as a holiday tea. It has a festive, friendly flavor profile that people that are not used to the bitterness of the original bitterness that's in tea, you could share this with kids of all ages, and I think you'd get positive responses from everyone. So consider that in your holiday feastings in whatever way, shape, or form they manifest. There is a festive aspect to the flavor profile and even the color of the tea as I'm looking at it now. It's a happy tea. And I think it will appeal to a broad range of folks that are not even normally interested in tasting tea. They might find this interesting and appealing. It has a base of black tea, but then there's this whole bouquet that happens. And that's what makes it a Shui Oolong, or Redwater Oolong tea. There you have it, batch number 25 of the Eco-Cha Tea Club. Please share your experiences with us. We want to hear what you think, and whatever questions that this tea provokes in you, please send them back to us. Send us your comments, your photos, your own tasting videos. We really want to make this tea club a community of sharing. So thanks again. We'll see you next month.